title fights.
What's up, everybody? Today is Thursday, October 12th, 2017. This is MMA Junkie Radio, but it's the pre-show. The show hasn't started yet. This is what we talk about before the show. This is the stuff that matters, really, when you think about it. It sets the tone for the show. To my left, Dan Tom. To my right, Evan Dunham's in studio. Gorgeous George in an undisclosed location. And Danny, the producer, in New York. How's everybody doing today?
Awesome.
Good.
I know what Evan had for breakfast. What did you guys have for breakfast?
Almond butter bar and a
Juliet
coffee.
came up with some contraption where it's a piece of toast with peanut butter, and then she cuts up bananas on top. Never had it till I met her. It must be some white people stuff. You ever heard of that, Evan? Danny?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that.
You got to put a little flaxseed on top
Okay,
of
there
it,
you go.
man.
Going up to 30.
What about the rest of you? Dan, Tom, what'd you have?
Almond butter and a coffee. Almond butter bar and a coffee.
And what about Danny Okers? Okers.
It just makes you guys angry when I say what I had for breakfast. I had an apple, almonds, and a cup of tea.
Oh, I respect that.
Not me.
Fine.
When I
No,
see
I'm gonna have
videos
to
of
say
Danny
I'm not
leaping
happy
off the
about that.
stage, I understand that he wants to just be fit and trim for his concerts.
I appreciate that, George. All right, guys, coming up.
It seems like something someone would eat if they were on a raft trying to ration their meals.
This is your captain speaking. We are making our descent into Las Vegas McCarran Airport. On behalf of our crew, we'd like to thank you for flying MMA Junkie Airlines. Now please fasten your seatbelts and put your tray tables in your upright position because the descent is going to be a little bit bumpy.
Alright, Junkie Nation, it's time to roll, baby, on MMA Junkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Gold. This is what we doing while we do it, baby. All night long, we rollin'! Yeah!
The MMA Junkie Radio revolution is upon us.
Can you dig it?
There's no escape. No escape. Through the vast frontier of cyberspace and through a sea of stars in outer space.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We've solidified our combat communications stranglehold.
We are controlling transmission.
With the use of MMA Junkie Radio and SiriusXM satellite radio technology. MMA Junkie Radio. Commence transmission. Live from MMA Junkie Radio HQ in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Here are your hosts, Gorgeous George and Goes.
From the fight capital of the world, inside the beautiful Mandalay Bay Racing Sportsbook and an undisclosed location in Mountain's Edge, Las Vegas, you are listening to the MMA Junkie Radio Show, the only show that matters. I'm your host, Gorgeous George. With me, as always, is the devious and dastardly Goes, our ace co-host, Backy's handling all the producing duties, Danny Otto, the best fight analyst in the game, Dan Tom, newest addition to the MMA Junkie Radio team, and of course, as you can tell, if you're watching the stream, Evan Dunham, UFC lightweight, joins us in studio. What's up, guys?
What's up?
Not much.
How's everybody doing today?
Good.
Chilling, man, chilling like a villain. Evan.
Yep.
Fuck, dude, you're like a Terminator, man. You know, that first round was not going your way.
No.
And then all of a sudden, you just kept coming and coming and coming. I'd love to ask Beneil Dariush and you together, you know, just, man, what were you guys thinking, you know? Because obviously, he's putting it on you, but he's not putting you away. So then I'd love to ask him, what were you thinking at that time? That was a great fight to start UFC 216. It was, in the end, a draw according to the judges. But either way, man, the fans really, really were on their feet. The fans at home were reacting. So, you know, as much as we can say congrats, because it wasn't a win, congrats, because he really did put on a show.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, it was a good fight. He hit me with a couple of short elbows there in the get-go, and it definitely rocked me big time. And I was definitely on survival mode there for a while. And I wanted to put on a good show. You know, we were the first fight on the main card, and it was a kind of a memorable show. And so I wanted to go out there and leave it all on the line. So I was just trying to stay moving so he couldn't put me away. If I could survive and get to that second, I'd be all good. I usually get better as fight goes on. So But yeah, man, Benil's a tough dude, and those elbows sucked.
It was like 2 downward elbows, right? Where did they smack you exactly?
Oh, he caught me right in the back of the ear. It was, very well placed. The first one hit me, and I was like, kind of like, whoa, what was that? And then he hit me with the second one, and I don't really remember taking a knee, I just remember I saw one of his legs in front of me, so I was like, oh, I better grab that thing. So, I watched it later on, and he hit me with the first one, and it kind of rocked me, and they hit me with the second one, and that one definitely did the job and put me down. It was kind of like a slow-mo knee, but that I took, and but I don't really remember it.
Wow.
Yeah, it was good times.
It was, of course, in the end, you were the better conditioned athlete. Now, I want to be fair. Again, I'd love to have Benil on the show sometime and just ask him, because I'm sure you've been in that position too, Evan. You smell blood, you go after it, you burn a lot of energy, you know what I mean? So I don't know if I want to necessarily call him a gassed athlete, because it could be that he put it all into trying to finish. But in the end, it was clear that you were the fresher fighter. We've talked about, even though Nevada State Athletic Commission has not adopted those 2017 rules that were put out by ABC where the 10-8's a little bit more lax, we have talked to other fighters that were involved in a draw. For example, Lando Venata and Bobby Green. What would you do if they just had the fourth round, kind of like on The Ultimate Fighter where we have to have a winner? Would you be down for something like that, just so that one of you does get that win bonus and all the accolades that goes with winning a fight? Or Absolutely. Do you like the fact that in 15 minutes, if it's not settled, it's not settled?
No, I love the fact of an overtime, man, because I just get better as the fight goes on. I don't think I've ever lost a third round, and I don't ever plan on losing one. So if they would have, I smelled blood at the end of that third. So if they would have gave me another round, I would have been all over them. So I would love that.
Now let's dissect this a little bit. We asked Bobby Green the same question, and he said, well, he sounded like he was down, but at the same time he was wondering, am I also getting paid for that extra round, You didn't kind of bring that up, and obviously I'm sure you wouldn't mind it if you got paid, but the round is there to settle the draw. What are your thoughts on that, and what are your thoughts on the win bonus? Neither guy got his win bonus, but yet it was still a great fight. Could the UFC do something where a win bonus, either yours or Benil's, whether they choose the higher one or the lower one, at least gets split, or they have a set number? Or have you heard behind the scenes if there's a discretionary bonus coming your way? Anything like that? Do you think that's fair?
I haven't heard anything that's coming my way. Once the ownership kind of changed, I haven't seen any, or heard of any of those. I don't know what the stance is on that, but yeah, I haven't heard of anything like that. It would be nice, if they, really the way I look at it is they should do it on subjectively according to the fight, because, we've seen draws that were just like, oh God, like, is this thing over yet? So if it's a boring draw, both guys take the loss, that's fine, but if it's a good fight, pay the guys, because, that's like a best case scenario for the organization. If they have a great fight and they don't pay the bonus to either one, it's like they paid, roughly 2/3 of what they were expecting to pay for a great fight. So I think it should be subjective, on the fight. As far as like getting paid for the fourth round, I don't care, because it's like you're already in it, so right. You already took its damage. You might as well take a little bit more for the opportunity to get that win and get that W on your side, as opposed to a draw. Like I jinxed myself because I watched the Bobby Green fight kind of in the back, and I hate draws. So I was like, man, I hate, and I said it out loud to my corners. I said, I hate draws. You know what? I never fight in draws. I'm never gonna fight in a draw. And we all just kind of laughed about it, because it's just kind of a joke. And then I fought to a draw, and I was like, man, I shouldn't have said that, because it kind of put it out there. So I was bummed out about it at first, because I didn't really know how to take it. But I saw a meme or something like that where it was like two guys on a tour bus, and they were on a road on the side of a cliff, and one guy was looking at the rock, and he was all depressed and stuff, and the other guy was on the other side of the bus, and he was looking out over a valley, and was like, oh man, this is beautiful, and he was all cheery. And it said, your reality a lot of times is what you make it and how you perceive things. And so I just chose to see it more as a win than a loss, so I'm actually okay with it. I rewatched it later on, and and the draw honestly makes sense to me. He beat the shit out of me in the first. Like, that's the way it was. I saw it as a 10-8, So, and I know I won the last two. So the draw makes sense to me. So,
does the fight feel like the type of fight that just needs to kind of go away and a new one comes up, or does it feel like it has that unfinished business feel to it?
No, it doesn't have that feel of the unfinished business. I know I was the underdog in this fight, and a lot of people kind of wrote me off for this fight, and I felt like I went out there and I showed that I'm still at that level. I'm still able to compete with these guys. In my opinion, Beneil's one of the best in the division. He lost to Barboza, but he was winning that fight with Barboza up until that point when he got caught with that knee. And Barboza is, in my opinion, I think Barboza will be champion, in the near future. So, I think I went out there and I proved what I was trying to prove with that fight, I know they don't do rematches unless it's like a title fight. So, to me, that's not even like worth the discussion as far as that goes, so.
How different is the fight from what you experience in the cage to when you go back and watch it?
Oh, man, like, this was a kind of a crazy fight because he hit me with those elbows, and, I had, like, some crazy, like, blurry vision. So, like, if you go like this with your hands and you look through the hole, like, all your hands was blurry, and I had to remind myself during the fight, like, I'm like, okay, look through the hole, so, which I'm sure is indicative of something that's not that good, but, I was definitely in a haze there for a while. It cleared up. They sent me to the hospital and I got all cleared, and I've done some concussion tests and all that good stuff, and I'm good to go now. But it was, there's definitely some parts that were a little bit foggy in it. But I remembered all of it except for when he hit me with that second elbow. That second elbow definitely rocked me pretty good. So.
Especially with hearing you talk now, I don't know what it's like for you, but watching tape study leading up to this fight, it reminded me of your fight with Efrain Escudero, because I believe you went back to your corner in the first round, and it was a little rough. And I think even going into the third round, you thought the first round might have just ended, but you actually came out in the third round. For people that don't know, not only won the fight, you submitted him.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a similar tide turn. You had a little rough start, but the tide started turning. Is that what it kind of felt like in there?
Yeah. I'm kind of a diesel engine, so it takes me a while to get going, and I'm trying to get out of that. In the last few fights, I've been pretty good about starting fast. And I thought I started fast on this one, too. And I was moving real well, and everything was nice and sharp and fast. And when he caught me with those elbows, it woke me up a little bit more, but at the same time, it slowed me down. Like, I watched, and I was like, my punches were more labored. They were a lot slower. My footwork wasn't what I wanted to be. Everything kind of got slowed down after he hit me with those elbows. But it wasn't to that degree where I went back to the corner. I didn't even know what round it was.
That's good.
I definitely knew what round it was, and I knew where I was. And I was on the up and up mentally, It was just I had a little bit of vision problems going through it. But, like I said, it cleared up pretty quick, and you got it cleared from everybody. So I'm good to go.
Right on, man. Good to hear.
All right. So let me clear up a couple things here. This is a really interesting chat. Again, this is Evan Dunham, UFC lightweight, coming off a draw versus Beneil Dariush at UFC 216, which took place this past weekend. The card headlined by Tony Ferguson and Kevin Lee. All right, Evan, a couple things here. When you said you got cleared for a concussion, can you share with us how extensive is that test? Is it just a couple questions, or are you sitting there for a couple hours going through, other random stuff? Us as fans and media, we're a little bit curious just to see the involvement of the sport. We're all pro safety, of course. This is great to hear that you're not just being sent home. They're the promotion's looking out for you. You're obviously looking out for yourself. What can you tell us about that?
Well, one thing I didn't get to do after the fight, and I'll definitely do now, is praise the Performance Institute. I spend a lot of time down there. I'm there like 3 or 4 days a week, working with their strength coach Bo and their nutritionist Clint and the PT lady Heather. And right before the fight, she was like, hey, I want to get like a baseline test on you for like a concussion thing. And so I was like, okay. So about 2 or 3 days before the fight, I went in and did a bunch of like tests and stability tests and like, motor skills tests and stuff like that, just to kind of get a baseline. So did the fight. After the fight, I talked to the doctor and I was like, yeah, I saw through like a hole the whole time. And they're like, all right, cool. So they took me to the hospital, which I didn't want to do because, like, I was, like, just being at that hospital was like more traumatic than the fight, because it's craziness that goes down there. But anyways, so they did the MRI, they did the head scan, you know, check for like bleeding of the brain and stuff like that. And I talked to the doctor, and he's like, "No, you're good." So as far as what they can see on those types of scans, I was okay, no problem. So then on Monday, I hit up Heather and was like, "Hey, you know, like I know you did the concussion, you know, thing, and I know you're trying to, because really what they're trying to do is they're trying to gather, you know, more information to see if there's any like tells and that sort of stuff for problems." And I said, "Well, you know, I obviously got cracked pretty good, and I probably 100% had a concussion. So do you want to do one of these tests?" She's like, yes, come down. So I went down there and did the test, and I actually like scored pretty much exactly the same as I did before, which I think is supposed to be a good indicator, because, you know, it showed that you know, nothing was like affected short term at least. So they're doing a good job down there, really trying to stay, you know, like I said, on the up and up with, you know, fighters' health. And so like that place is great. I know a lot of fighters don't like it, and I totally understand why, because, you know, if you're out of the state, you know, and all this money got spent on the place and you got no opportunities to use it, of course you're going to be a little bit bitter about it. But since I'm here in Vegas, you know, I'd be dumb not to use it. So I'm in there all the time, and the people in there are really genuinely like looking out for the fighters and trying to help them out as much as they can. So that's, you know, that's the extent that I got, you know, cleared and stuff like that. I still got to go to the ophthalmologist for my eyes and stuff, but I don't see it being a problem, because, you know, like I said, it all cleared up.
Well, I don't know about the guys, but that was some amazing stuff. I mean, really, really proud of you for, you know, okay, obviously they sent you to the hospital. You didn't want to go, but you went, and then after that, you making the call to the young lady at the UFC PI, Heather, and going through that testing. That's responsible actions there from a professional athlete. So I'm super glad and happy to hear you go through that. I really, really applaud you, and thanks for taking us through that. I mean, I really shed some light a little bit on what the UFC PI you know, offers. The protocol of you know, what happened after the fight. So thanks for sharing that, man. That was really, really good stuff. Evan, you said it now, and I don't know if you realized it then or upon seeing the fight, but you knew Beneil had taken it to you in the first round. So was your corner communicating that, hey, you may be staring at a 10-8. Not only do we need these 2 rounds if you were to just walk away with a draw, but obviously if you want to win, we got to step on the gas for a finish. Like, what kind of chat was going on in regards to that?
It's kind of funny because it's on the video where my buddy Kyle comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, that was his round." And I was like, "Hell yeah, it was. Of course it was." You know, I couldn't agree more. And I knew, you know, we didn't talk about it being a 10-8 or anything, you know, because you don't. I mean, we got like a minute, so. He was like, "That's his round, man. You need to get on, you know, your horse and go." And I knew it, you know, so I knew I needed to pick it up and switch things around. And like I always tell my kids at the gym, you know, and I originally heard this from Ray Suffo, and in a fight with I think it was TJ Grant or something like that. But he said, you know, one round doesn't determine the next. So if you know, you get your ass kicked, which I did in the first round, that's not indicative of what's going to happen next round. So you got to start over. You got to start fresh. Get out there and, you know, change things. And so that's really what I was focused on when I went back out. You know, and because it's too easy to get in that mindset of, oh man, if he takes me down again, if he hits me with that elbow again, if, you know, oh man, I don't want that to happen again. So you just got to like clear that out of your mind and just go back to work. And, you know, I'm very fortunate because, you know, I don't have a big camp that I work with. I pretty much just call my friends and, you know, and get help and get ready. And Kyle's one of those guys, and he's brutally honest with me. And, you know, and the nice thing about that is we're on the same page, you know, of what we're thinking all the time. So, you know, when he said that, I knew exactly what he meant. So, yeah, you know, it was just a matter of gearing up and getting back after it. But I knew before I even got to the stool that you know, he won that round. So.
And coming out of the third, did you know that if you won the third, you could be looking at a draw? Were you even thinking that clear at that time, or? A
draw never even crossed my mind until they said it, to tell you the truth. Because, you know, I think this was like my 33rd fight or something like that, total counting amateurs. And I've never had a draw before, and so it was. I wasn't thinking draw. I was actually thinking, oh man, I won that because I won 2 and 3.
Right.
You don't, like, when I'm in there, I don't think about, like, how did they score that round. I think about, did I win that round or did I lose that round? But after this fight, I think I'll probably start thinking a little bit more about, okay, well, how exactly did they score it? So, I honestly,
so let me press you on that a little.
Yeah.
Let me press you on that a little. I feel like I said this a few years ago. There was God, I can't remember, but I think I said American top teams coaching outcoached. It was either Lawler versus Hendricks, or do you remember, Goes? What fight it was where we talked about the coaching? It was over 5 rounds, and regardless, I guess that's not as important. But here's what I'm getting at, Evan.
Yeah.
I know this is tough because these are your friends that are coaching you. Could the coaching have been better? Like, could that have been communicated to you that could be a 10-8? Therefore, you may be staring at a draw. Now, I know you only have a minute, and they're trying to get your breathing going. They're looking out for your safety. They're dabbing the cuts and all that stuff. But in any way, would you want that communicated to you on a future bout so that you know exactly what kind of offense needs to be put out there so that you do take home the win?
I don't think so. I don't think it really mattered because, when my guys send me in there to fight, then we're not thinking about, okay, I got to do this, I got to do that so I can score a 9-8 or a 10-8. I'm just thinking I'm going to go in there and whoop his ass, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to try to I'm always trying to finish, if I see a chance,
right.
Every time I hit him, I wasn't like, okay, I'm going to hit him to score and get a little more points. I was like, I'm going to hit him to knock him out, So
right.
I don't think it really mattered at that point, because you're always going in there looking to hurt him, looking to finish. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But if somebody, I think honestly it would have messed with me more because if now I know I have to go in there and, granted, if it was like I lost the first 2 and I'm going into the third, I have to finish him, and I know that.
Right.
But like in this case where I knew I lost the first and I had 2 rounds, but if I know, I have to finish him in 2 rounds, otherwise I got no chance of winning. It's going to be a draw. I think that's almost adding too much pressure on myself, and not, because when there's that kind of pressure, I think it inhibits your performance more than it helps it. Because very rarely does somebody lose the first 2 rounds and the coach's like, you got to go out and finish them, and they go out and finish them.
Right.
Usually they kind of crack under that pressure and they freeze up, if anything. You know what I mean? They're like, I got to finish them. And they're thinking so much about that it inhibits their performance. And so honestly, I wasn't disappointed with the coaching as far as that aspect. Now that you bring that up, no, it doesn't bother me at all.
All right. Well, your stock didn't drop because, again, you made some great points in that you were the underdog. Benil's ranked higher. So you didn't lose. You didn't win, but you didn't lose. And it was a great fight, especially because you finished strong. So we're going to let that marinate for a bit, and we're going to see if we can pick up some names that you can throw out there, and maybe even a location, so that since it sounds like you're healthy and ready to go, we'd love to see you again either in 2017 or the early part of 2018. Because the one thing I believe in is when a fighter's healthy, fight, and keep making your moves. And right now you got your last 5 fights, you've been unbeaten. You have a 4-fight win streak and the draw, so might as well build on that. However, I do want to reward our caller that called in, Jeffrey from L.A. Jeffrey, any topics out there, or if you got something for Evan, that's fine. Evan's hanging out with us here for that first hour. What you got, Jeffrey from L.A.? How you doing?
Hey, Evan, that was a good fight against Benil Dariush at UFC 216. Keep your chin up, and looking forward to you getting back in there, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So, guys, the whole Mark Hunt thing, Mark Hunt is doing worse than I thought if he's saying he was misquoted and taken out of context for an article he's credited as writing. And I'm just not... When you have all these things going on with Mark Hunt, taking him out of that fight was the right thing to do, and I don't know how anyone can argue any differently, no matter what Mark Hunt's saying. And I just can't buy into that. As for Tony Ferguson, he better get that fight with Conor McGregor. He's the interim champion. In my mind, he's the true champion. When you look at all the facts, he's the one who's been fighting at lightweight. won 10 fights, and then you can't give that fight to Nate Diaz. Evan, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but I think giving that fight to Nate Diaz against Conor McGregor instead of Tony Ferguson would be ridiculous. Tony Ferguson is the true contender. He's the true lightweight champion in my mind, and that's the only fight you make next. You don't even consider a fight with Nate Diaz. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you, Jeffrey. That was a great call. Evan, what do you think of that? Well, before we get to you, what do you think of the whole landscape at the top? We have a new interim champion. We have a champion who is getting close to 1 year, and he hasn't defended. And one strong option for him is a huge moneymaker, not only for him but the UFC, and that's Nate Diaz. Your thoughts?
Man, I'm a fan of Conor's, man. I wasn't at the beginning, but you have to appreciate his talent and what he does, and Conor's great. But if he comes back, and I don't know if he's gonna after making that much money, I might not either. He's got to fight Ferguson, man. He's got to fight Ferguson because Ferguson is the champion. Like, that's why the interim title was made. That's why the reason they did the whole thing last weekend is Ferguson's a champ in my book. If anybody asks, Ferguson's a champ of the 55 division right now. So if Conor comes back, he has to fight Ferguson. That's the thing. That's the way it works in my book. But I know it doesn't always go that way. And I know they've talked about Diaz. Diaz has been out so long. He's I don't know if he's waiting for Conor or what's going on. But it kind of sucks, man, because the division, and I talked about this last time I was here, the division's so jammed up at the top that it makes it really tough for anybody to work their way up because you got Diaz who's not doing anything. You got Conor last weekend kind of helped it out because now we have a new champion and there is starting to be some movement. But it sucks because, you got guys that are just stagnant. You got El Cuenta, who I don't know what he's doing, selling houses or something like that. And he's jamming up that part of the division. The middle's jammed up by Nate, and the top was jammed up by Conor. So I think these guys either got to fight or I don't know, man. But if Conor comes back, he's got to fight Ferguson. Period. In my book.
Do you watch professional wrestling at all?
No.
All right. The audience that does. This whole Conor situation kind of reminds me of Brock Lesnar, where he just kind of comes back for big events. You never really know what exactly he's going to do. When he comes back, it's a big deal. Yeah. I feel like even if you look at it from a business standpoint, it makes sense to take that Tony fight now because that Nate fight is always there, no matter what happens. Yeah. There's always that third fight that you can have it whenever. So you have two big paydays versus if you fight Nate now, say you lose, now the Tony fight went away. Now you only have one big payday. I think it makes sense business-wise. I think it makes sense to kind of show that you're in it for the fighters, for the division, that this is a sport, and that you guys can, if you do all your hard work, there's something that pays off in the end. I don't like the fact that sometimes you guys can do everything right and still not get what you deserve.
I 100% agree. Kevin said it best. Kevin Lee said it best. The rankings don't mean shit at this point, which breaks my heart. Hearing that as a guy who's based my whole career on trying to work my way up the rankings, because in my idea, you work your way up the rankings, that's what gets you a title shot. But that's apparently not the way it works nowadays. And I get it, from a business standpoint, but if you look at the potential fight between Conor and Ferguson, I bet you money that if that fight takes place, it's going to be a wild, crazy fight, and it's going to be way more entertaining than either one of the Conor and Diaz fights. So, in my opinion, that's the fight I want to see. Not necessarily even because of the rankings. A lot of it is because of the rankings. But I think stylistically that would be an insane fight. So, that's how I look at it. I don't want to see the same thing over and over again.
We got to pay some bills, so let's take a quick break here. We have UFC lightweight Evan Dunham here in studio. We'll continue to take your calls, and we'll talk to Evan about what might be next for him as he's coming off that draw with Beneil Dariush. He's been in the UFC for a long time. He's fought a lot of cats, so we'll have to sift through and see if the rematch route works for any of them other names that he's messed around with in the past, or if he wants a fresh matchup. Big shout-out to Hector Rodriguez, Juan Ramirez, and Jay Zen in the YouTube chat. And folks, give us a few minutes. We'll be right back. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM, Rush 93.
Heart, compassion, common sense. These guys have none of that. You listen to them, so you're no better. I am awesome, though. They are Gorgeous George and Goes.
SiriusXM presents an exclusive subscriber-only event, The Eagles, live at the Grand Ole Opry. You can win a trip to Nashville and front row tickets. For more information and to enter, go to SiriusXM.com/Eagles before October 19th. No additional purchase is necessary. Guys, did you happen to catch, I believe it was the Florida Gators, their stadium, where everybody broke out and sung along in between the third and the fourth quarter, I Won't Back Down by Tom Petty. I guess it started off maybe as a tribute because he had passed away. And if I'm not mistaken, I read up a little bit on Tom Petty when he passed away, and I'm not going to cheat and look at it now, but I think there is a tie-in because he may be from Gainesville, Florida, or I imagine that's why it went down like that. But all of a sudden it picked up steam, and there was like 70,000 people singing it, man. It was really, really cool. If you get a chance, Google that. You'll and I think you guys will dig it.
It wasn't.
All right, folks.
The stadium didn't play the music. They just did it on their own.
I think the stadium started off with it, and
that's pretty.
But then people joined in, and so it was just really, really powerful. All right, Evan Dunham, our guest here on MMA Junkie Radio, and he has just come off a draw versus Beneil Dariush. I told him this earlier, and I really mean it. It was a great fight. I don't believe the stock went down on either guy. Maybe too soon to run it back. Maybe down the line we'd love to see them do it. But in the meantime, Evan, what's next for you? If you had your choice, you call Sean Shelby and go, what's my next assignment? He goes, well, what do you want, Evan? What do you tell him?
You know, one fight that I would love to get would be and it sounds funny, so I'll kind of explain a little bit more. But in my mind, the way that this should work is, Ferguson obviously hopefully fights Conor. And then the next in line would be the winner of the Gaethje and Alves fight, right? Because I think one of them's 3-5 or 4-5, something like that.
You got Habib in the background a little bit too.
Yeah, but I mean,
but we don't know. Yeah,
he's another one I didn't mention earlier that's jamming up the division, and it's like, dude, well, what do you do? You know what I mean? So go up to 70 or let's fight. So yeah, in my book, that's kind of the winner of that gets the title fight. So I would like to fight the loser of that. And usually, they go loser, and I'm kind of in this gray area of a draw. I don't know what it means. I guess I'll figure it out here pretty soon. But I would love to fight the loser of that fight because the winner should get the title shot. And it makes sense to me because you got Alves, I think, who lost. Is he on a 3-fight lose streak? Something like that. So
Eddie Alvarez?
Yeah, I think so.
He tied Poirier, and before that, he lost his title to Conor. So I guess he's lost one, and not tied. Sorry, there was a no contest.
Yeah.
I forgot what I said, but Poirier was looking good there, and but that fight wound up being a no contest, and then the one before that was the title loss. So that's where he sits.
Theoretically, if he loses, he'll be on a kind of a 3-fight skid, so to speak, if he got the no contest. So if that's the case, and I'm thinking that he should, have to fight down, obviously, at that point, and so I'm not too far down, I think I'm sitting at like 14 or something like that. And then with Gaethje, if Gaethje loses, he'll be 1-1 in the UFC. All of his fights top 5 guys. Mm-hmm. So if he's 1-1 in the UFC, he should definitely have to step back and fight somebody further down the list to kind of show that he deserves to be up there. So that's how I justify fighting the loser of that fight. Both of them are very talented. I'm actually a fan of both of their fighting styles. They're both great. But to me, that makes a good sense to fight. Everybody else seems to be lined up, and they fight in December. I don't want to take a lot of time off, but I'm not going to be one of these guys that just jumps right back into camp, especially after taking a couple elbows like that. I think that's the key to longevity, is taking a little bit of time after a fight and letting your brain heal. So they fight in December. If they want to, if I can get that fight in late February or March, I'd be all over that. So
I like it. I honestly don't think that the UFC is going to treat it as a loss for both of you guys. Yeah. But if you had to kind of, even though it was a draw, the one thing that I think is in your favor is momentum, right? It felt like the end of round 3, you carried more momentum than Beneil did. So, if anything, that might help you a little bit, I think.
Yeah, and I won my 4 before that, so I can't say I won my last 5, but I can also say I haven't lost my last 5 because I didn't lose, So I'll play that. I think, the draw sucks, but I might as well use it to my advantage because, it puts me in that gray area, and like I said, they like to do winner versus winner or loser versus loser type of scenarios, so that kind of puts me in a boat where I could do either. That's kind of how I look at it, So
well, there's someone else in your boat. Bobby Green's coming off a draw. He's got a bigger name than Lando Venata at this point. So there's that name. I was also thinking of Michael Chiesa if he hasn't taken a fight, and if you didn't want to wait till December, you could maybe cut your time down by a month if you take on the loser or the winner of Poirier and Anthony Pettis, two high-profile names as well. So figured, there's a couple options for you out there.
I'm not going to fight down, I'll tell you that right now. I'm only fighting up. And I said that before going into my last fight. I said I'm not taking a fight because they try to give me somebody who isn't ranked, and it's like, dude, I'm coming off of four wins. Like, if this isn't an opportunity for me to fight up, I don't know what is. And since I didn't take a loss, I'm not changing my stance. So I'm fighting up.
So that eliminates Green. Chiesa, you're okay with, though?
Yeah, we'll I kind of got to sit down and, talk to a few people and figure it all out. Chiesa's a good matchup. He's tough. He's tall. I think he's a southpaw. No, is he southpaw?
Yep,
yeah.
He is.
And I'm a southpaw, so everybody hates a southpaw, including a southpaw.
Yep.
So we'll see. But I really like that. I think a fight.
That's a battle of the Northwest right there, man. Oregon versus Washington.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm eyeing that. I'm eyeing the fights that I talked about earlier. I think that make for a good fight. Both those guys are forward fighters. They put a lot of pressure on guys, and as you saw this weekend, I don't crack under pressure. So I think it makes for a really fun fight.
I like that you brought up that point about even southpaws hate southpaws, because as a southpaw, I reckon that, and I try to put that in my breakdowns. When I was breaking down your fight, I was like, Evan, depending on how you look at it, really hasn't lost to southpaws. He does really well because the only loss is quote unquote to Dos Anjos, which I and many felt you won that fight in Brazil, and then the draw to Dariush. So, and those are two of the best southpaws in the division.
Yeah. Everybody hates southpaw because it's out of the norm. So even if you're like, I'm a southpaw, I fight a southpaw, I'm used to going against orthodox. So it's like it's just out of the wheelhouse for anybody. So I've been saying it a long time. I was like, I'm going to get a shirt that says everybody hates a southpaw, and then in parentheses below it, even a southpaw. So.
Evan, did you have any words with Beneil Dariush? He had taken it a little personal of the call out, but at the end, you guys shared 15 minutes in that octagon, spilled a lot of sweat, blood, other stuff. What'd that go like afterwards?
Yeah, I told him right after the fight, even before the announcement, when you got that like 2 seconds to say, hey, good fight, I said, hey, man, don't take it personal. I called you out because I think you're one of the best in the division. And he's like, no, I don't. So, if people take offense, I'm learning to accept the hate. If somebody wants to get mad at me for calling them out, that's cool with them and cool with me. But I don't think, we're good, man. I think Beneil's a great fighter, and that's why I did call him out. Is like I said on the show last time, I wanted to test myself against one of the best guys, and in my book, Beneil was the best guy that I could test myself against that was available.
All right. Well, again, if you want to call in and discuss anything that's going on with the sport, 866-522-2846. Now, Jeffrey had asked about Mark Hunt, and then he had another question towards Evan. We went to that question in the commercial. We didn't touch on Mark Hunt. I will agree with this with Jeffrey. Mark Hunt, I guess, if he doesn't pen that article, I'm not sure we have a problem, really. So it does circle back to that. But it's more confusing because there's some lawsuits that are out there, and anytime anybody has any sort of dialogue with anyone, whether with an audience or between two parties, obviously that can be important data as the lawsuit unfolds. So tomorrow I think we're going to tackle that. One of our writers is going to come on, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the Mark Hunt situation. For those that don't know, he has been pulled from the fight card in Australia, and now stepping in will be Fabricio Verdum. So Fabricio Verdum definitely building off of the momentum from his win over Walt Harris. And another thing I wanted to talk about, what did you guys think about UFC Winnipeg? That fight night was thrown out. Man, you see a matchup like Lawler and Dos Anjos, holy cow, I saw that, had a big old smile on my face. I was like, that is great. I mean, that's a great matchup. However, I started thinking, oh, it would have been nice to squeeze that one onto UFC 219 in Las Vegas. We talked about oversaturation the other day, and these cards, they spread out. I guess that's how you have your worldwide domination. You have to hit these cities, and obviously Fox needs a certain amount of shows. But, boy, man, sometimes you just think to yourself how much the UFC could really, really stack some cards if they just stuck to maybe 20 as opposed to 40 fights per year. But, guys, what do you think of the Dos Anjos and Robbie Lawler matchup announced earlier today?
Well, you're using two guys, and especially Robbie Lawler, where usually when you hear their name, you don't even really have to stick around for the second name. You're just kind of like, I'm in. You just want to see those guys fight. So when you pair them together, even better. I think it's a really fun fight. I think me and Dan were just kind of sitting there trying to figure out, like, how can the fight like that play out? Because there's so many different scenarios, and I think that's what makes a good fight. So I'm kind of down with it. How about you, Dan?
Well, I think we were just talking about it. We just saw it with Evans' fight. We have two southpaw pressure fighters going against each other head-to-head. So those always make for fun matchups from that standpoint. And then obviously both guys have underrated wrestling and ground games as well. So, no matter where the fight goes, it's going to be action. I'm excited.
How about you, Evan? Do you geek out, when stuff like that, you hear about it? Those are two high-profile fighters. They're out of your division. Do you become a fan for a moment? Or, how attached are you to following the sport day-to-day and these cards that get built out?
There's certain fights that I get super excited for, absolutely. But I'm not a big fan of Dos Anjos, to tell you the truth. For obvious reasons. I'll watch it. I hope Lawler wins.
I'm sorry for bringing up that fight earlier, by the way.
You're good. You're good.
Now, does that go for all the fighters you fought? You just kind of lessen your fandom for them, or is there anything in particular about Dos Anjos that you don't like?
No, man. Most of the fighters I really, really like, but Dos Anjos, I mean, he kind of, after the fight, after every fight I go up and talk to guys. I try to, try to have beers and stuff, but it was in Brazil, and I went up to him, was like, hey man, good fight, and he was like, oh, this cut right here is because you headbutted me, oh, this and this and this, and I was like, all right, dude, whatever, I don't know. He just came off, he just rubbed me the wrong way after the fight, I'm sure he's a good dude, I'm sure he's, he just rubbed me the wrong way,
You
wow.
like that?
So I didn't know this.
What's that?
You like that, having a beer with your opponent afterwards? I mean, you did.
I like having a beer afterwards no matter what. But if my opponent's there, that's cool. So, yeah, Rick Glenn, I had a couple beers with him, He's like, oh, I can only have one. I was like, no, man, you're going to have a couple more beers, So, I get along with pretty much everybody. And, but, yeah, Dos Anjos just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, man. I don't know why. It just...
I did not know that story, Evan. I don't know how public it is, but was it just like a polite, no, you did this, whatever, or did it become confrontational at all?
No, it didn't become confrontational at all, but, it was just kind of, I was just trying to say, hey, good fight, man, and he was like, oh, I think he was trying to justify to me why he thought he won the fight, is honestly what I think it was. And he was like, oh, this cut, you headbutted me, and this and this. All right, dude, instead of being like, hey, good fight, man, yeah, you too, but, and then have it be that. He was just like, he was trying to justify to me why he thought he won the fight, and I think the reason he was doing that is because he knew he lost that fight.
It's funny you say that. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Dan.
Oh, no, I was just going to say it's funny you say that because watching that fight, I like watching fighters' facial expressions whenever you have a close decision or a decision you don't necessarily agree with. Yeah. And Dos Anjos' fight, now that you mention it, he did not look like he won the fight after that third round, sounded.
He didn't. He knows it. So, but, he's done great things since, and I can't take that away from him. He's doing good things at 70. I wish him all the best, but, I don't think we're going to have beers anytime soon.
All right. One thing we have to have pretty soon is our last commercial break. So let's get to it. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Rush 93. We have UFC lightweight Evan Dunham in studio. Stay close, folks. We'll be right back.
To link into the MMA Junkie Radio Network, hit us up on Twitter.com at MMA Junkie Radio. This is MMA Junkie Radio. Here are your hosts, Gorgeous George and Goes.
SiriusXM is now on Amazon Alexa. Just enable the SiriusXM skill, log into your account, and say, Alexa, listen to MMA Junkie Radio on SiriusXM. For more information, visit SiriusXM.com/Amazon Alexa. We have Evan Dunham here in studio. He's getting ready to bounce. So if you want one last question or shout out, call in 866-522-2846. I'm going to send it over to Danny Okers with MMA History Today. Let's bring that back. What's up, Danny? What you got?
All right. So for today, for our comeback for MMA History Today, it's funny you guys have been talking. I've heard the name Eddie Alvarez thrown around a little bit. Mm-hmm. Today, it actually, October 12th, 2012, Eddie Alvarez earns his final stoppage win in the Bellator cage when he knocked out Patricky Pitbull with a head kick.
Very cool.
That's right. For those of you that don't know, Eddie Alvarez was a world champion over at Bellator before coming over to the UFC, and in the UFC became a UFC champion. So those are some nice creds that he has there. And folks, follow our boys at MMA History Today. It's easy, at MMA History Today. All right, so we kind of have an idea of where Evan is headed. Evan, I imagine that the perfect scenario for if they do give you the loser of Gaethje and Alvarez would be Vegas, or do you like the sound of the Northwest, or is there another fight town you want to take your skills to?
I like Vegas, man. I think I showed in the last fight that I got a good following here. I got lots of people that come out and support me, and I'm able to get the crowd going here. I want to fight in Vegas from now on, man. I'll make this my home. You know, I've been here for a decade now. You know, and I like to think I'm more Vegas than I am Northwest nowadays. So if I can, I'll fight here every single time.
And it doesn't sound like you're moving anytime soon, because you were really excited about the prospect of the Oakland Raiders moving and becoming the Las Vegas Raiders. So I always felt like once you retired, you might head back. I thought you had told us that, but are you starting to? I mean, are the roots set now? Is Vegas home?
Yeah, no, I
forever?
got my daughters here, man. I got my gym here. I love Vegas, man. It's the weather's good. I don't have any intentions on going back to Oregon. I'll be in Vegas for a long time.
You'll be 36 in December. Is there a number to win or an amount of fights? Because you're a veteran, you got a lot of fights under your belt, cashing the bigger Reebok checks. But is there a time where you'll know, hey, you know what? Maybe I should start winding things down.
I don't know, man. I try not to think about it. I just go off of if I'm having fun. There's been times where I'm like, man, this isn't that fun. And then what I do at that point is I chill. I do what is fun. And to me, doing jiu-jitsu is a lot of fun. So I just start training a lot of jiu-jitsu. And then, a couple months go by and I'm like, man, I want to hit something, and then I start hitting stuff, and then I'm like, oh, man, I want to get a fight, So if I'm having fun, man, I'm going to keep fighting.
I think it was Dan that brought up the other day, correct me if I'm wrong, Damian Maia now sets up shop when he comes to Vegas with you. Is that true? You guys spend a lot of time together? How much have you learned off him?
He's come to the gym a few times. I wouldn't say he sets up shop or anything like that. But, I've been very, lucky to have him come in a few times. And, I helped him out with a camp. I did some sparring with him one time. But he's only come in a couple times. So I hope he comes in more, man. Shoot, like that guy is like a stud, man. Like I love watching him. I would love to learn more from that guy, man. He's phenomenal.
Let's take a quick call from Marco in Waco, Texas. What's up, Marco? How you doing?
Marco from Waco, bro. ¿Qué pasa, vato? And Evan, the zombie Dunham. Evan, the Walking Dead Dunham. I don't know what to call you, dude, but what an amazing fight you put out with that huge. He threw everything but the kitchen sink at you, and you wouldn't go away, man. I was super impressed. Hey, Evan, you guys were having the discussion of money for the draws and stuff. I don't know. You talk about draws being boring. Last I remember, every single draw scene on the UFC had been an exciting fight, man. And I'm counting you on that one again. But can you figure out a way to start getting a little bit more active in the first round? Because second and third, no problem. But the first round, you always get in trouble, man. What's up with that crap? Peace out, guys.
All right, we'll see you, Marco.
Man, thank you, Marco. And I honestly don't know what he said, dude. It was hard to follow.
Basically, is there an equation to start things off? Because the first round you start a little slow. Otherwise, you're phenomenal.
Oh, thank you, Marco. I appreciate it, man. Shit, kind of threw me off guard. I just got to start faster, and I think I was doing a really good job of it, tell you the truth, in this fight. And in the last couple fights, I think I was able to start off really fast. I think for this fight, he just caught me with a good couple elbows, man. I got to give him credit for that. He snuck those two short elbows in on the cage, and it rocked me. So, and I
got to jump in here, Evan. I got to jump in. I'm sorry. It looks like we're closing out, and Goz is telling me that our time with you is up, but sorry to cut you off. Great fight. And, folks, we're going to a commercial. We will come back with Zach Makovsky and more phone calls. Thanks. folks, here we go. It's the second hour of the MMA Junkie Radio Show. Again, thank you to Evan Dunham, UFC lightweight, for stopping by and co-hosting the first hour of the studio. If you didn't catch it, I'll sum it up. He's not too disappointed over that draw. He finished strong. He's happy with the performance. Of course, both him and Beneil Dariush would love to take home a win bonus, and that was a topic earlier this week as well when we interviewed Bobby Green. He drew with Lando Venata, but it just works out where no one gets a win bonus. Yet great fights are still being produced. Hopefully the UFC can maybe take care of them, send each guy the equivalent of one of the guys' bonus. I don't think it throws you out of whack, out of budget. Shout out to Gavin McCarran, Jason Ford in the Facebook chat, Phil Edelstein, Michael Eng as well. 866-522-2846 is the number to call in. Now would probably be a good time because in about 20 minutes we'll catch up with Zach Makovsky, former Bellator bantamweight champion, former RFA flyweight champion, former UFC flyweight, now fighting for ACB. He's actually headlining a card out in Montreal. So we'll talk to him about that. Zach Fun Size, if you'll recall, he's still one of the top flyweights in the world. Even though he's not with the UFC, he's still, handling his business. And he's still ranked in the USA Today Sports MMA Junkie rankings. Again, that number to call in is 866-522-2846. Before we do get to those calls, Goes, do you know what I'm talking about, though? Didn't it seem like, for one, just the concussion talk was fun, and then him breaking down the UFC 155-pound, 5-pound, the lightweight, the 155-pound weight class, stumbling all over the place. And, he said he feels like Tony's the champ. Connor's doing his own thing. Hated him at first. Fan of him now, but he's kind of off doing his own thing. He looks at Ferguson as the champ. I thought Evan had some really, really solid takes, and it was a fun hour with him.
Yes, I believe I know what you were saying, Dog. I, too, agree. I thought what maybe changed Evan a little bit in that is maybe becoming a father is something that really makes you want to get in and run these types of tests to just make sure everything's good. And I would think it's probably similar, George, to when you get pulled over by a cop and you know that everything's in order, your registration, your insurance, you got it all, but you always have that uneasy feeling. I think that's probably what it's like for these guys to go in and do those tests, and I think that's why a lot of them avoid doing that stuff. So kudos to Evan for going in there and doing it, and kudos to him for sharing that information with us, because we often speculate about those type of things and what goes on in fighters' lives. So it was actually really cool to hear step by step what the process was like and what he did.
100%.
Yeah, because he could have stopped halfway through, come out of the hospital and said, all right, they said I'm good. He said an MRI, and he said, I wrote it down, a head scan. So he had those tests there, but what he wanted to do was compare it to the baseline test they gave him at the UFC PI, and he didn't wait 2 weeks. He didn't wait 2 months. He just went in there and confronted it like a man, so I'll give him props on that as well. He said the test came out great, so that makes me feel better because, lately the talk has been weight cutting and concussions and this and that, and it gets scary at times, man. It really does. I feel like we've dodged plenty of bullets in this sport when it comes to what we cover mostly, which is UFC and Bellator. A couple of the other organizations as well that have been around 5-6 years. But, most of it for the last 10 has been obviously the Ultimate Fighting Championship. But some of the stuff that happens overseas, man, is really, really scary. And it all bears the same name, MMA, And then when it's reported by some of the bloggers who are irresponsible, they'll tie it into the UFC. And, of course, that hits mainstream. Who knows? Anyway, 866-522-2846. Thank you to Goes for booking the Evan Dunham spot there. We have Hal from Chicago. Let's take that call. ¿Qué pasó, man?
That's I didn't hear the Evan Dunham interview, but I was hoping to learn more about what those tests are. So I'm looking forward to listening back. But just based on what you just said, so it sounds like he had an MRI, a CT scan, and then maybe some neurocognitive tests, like paper and pencil type tests.
So what he did was
memory and cognition.
Yeah.
He went to the UFC PI and got a baseline test for concussions, and they wanted to see where he was, at that moment. I'm sure a test like that at the beginning of your career is the optimal way to go, but Evan's got at least 15, 20 UFC fights under his belt, so he he is where he is right now, so he did it. He has the fight with Beneil Dariush. He wasn't too thrilled about going to the hospital, but he did. He went, they did an MRI, a head scan, everything went well there. But for his own peace of mind, he went back. He actually called the young lady, Heather from the UFC PI, and said, hey, I've been cleared over here, but I want to revisit with you. So she was obviously excited to hear a fighter, do that. I'm sure many of them maybe don't follow up or don't take any sort of initiative. He goes out there, and it was very comparable to where he was at. So you could just tell he was at peace here during the interview. And, he even went further and said, either way, it was a rough fight. I took some elbows. So even though I'm healthy, I'm not in the biggest hurry to fight. He'd love to fight maybe sometime in February or March.
Yeah. And, unfortunately, some of those tests, they're not always, you can't capture everything. Like there's things like personality changes and rage, you know what I mean? And like you see Hunt with the way he kind of snaps, that might just be his personality, but it might also be, some chronic trauma over time. People get irritable and, so it would be good for people to talk to family members, and that's the thing where they say even in psychology or medicine, the clinical interview is still the best instrument that we have for diagnosing a problem. Aside from all these expensive, fancy tests, yes, they help, but there's nothing like a good clinical interview. I'm sure they do that, but it'd be good if they talk to family members, because that's what's going to give you the real scoop. Yes, Mark Hunt, you asked Evan Dunham, do you feel depressed? Oh, no, I'm good, man. Do you have any panic attacks? Oh, no, man, I'm good. Any changes in your interpersonal relationships? No, everything's fine. Yeah, good. Meanwhile, his wife's about to leave him because he's drinking and yelling every day at night. You know what I mean? So, I just wonder about that. I don't know if you talked about that at all, but that was collateral interviews, as we call them, are crucial to really seeing how this guy's functioning, And maybe it's who cares, but, they're fighters, but I think that's what a lot of things happen, and guys just don't talk about it because they're embarrassed too,
Well, I definitely wouldn't file it under who cares.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this much.
I'm just thinking Jason Ford,
Yeah. I'll tell you this much. I've noticed a lot of reactions from media that I'm friends with, follow, or whatever, where they're just sick to their stomach from like videos from like what came out of Japan recently, or some of the stories, or there may be one serious shot or serious injury away from saying, you know what, I just don't want to follow this sport. It's not for me. Now, there's times where I see stuff like that, and I may think it for half a second, like, wow, like what am I involved in, with here? But, the UFC does have a great track record in terms of the safety they've had on what's closing in on 25 years. I love the sport. I realized when I got into it, I was covering violence. Hell, I'm promoting violence. On fight night, those are the fights that I guess I'm most tickled to death about, are the ones that are bloody, and these guys go to war. And the fighters themselves, they know it, man. They know what they're getting themselves into. They know what they signed up for, whatever. So I don't think you all ever have to worry that, well, as far as I'm concerned, I'll let the guys answer in regards to how they feel. Dan definitely will have an opinion on this, because he's been very close. It's affected him, his teammates. But, for how you're right, man. I mean, I guess we could learn from this interview and from, you obviously being a professional in that field, telling us this stuff. Maybe that's something we can have a part 2 with Evan Dunham in the future.
Yeah, and Mark Hunt, did you guys talk about that much? As far as
a little bit.
I personally think it sounds like BS to me. I mean, if he cleared his medical test, why are you pulling the guy from the fight over an interview? That sounds bizarre to me.
Yeah, that sounds pretty brutal. I did kind of touch on Mark Hunt, not so much on that aspect, but actually on the aspect that you're talking about now, Hal, with the concussions and whatnot, as far as like, the anger and stuff I noticed. And it might have sounded like yesterday. I apologize if, when I was saying it yesterday, because it sounds like over speculation. But again, 2 years from today, 2 years ago today, I was in vestibular therapy for concussions. When you heard Evan Dunham mention balance issues that they tested for, that was on the vestibular side, because a lot of part of the symptoms too is balance. Old people are always falling over. It's because when you get older, your vestibulars, whether you've taken head trauma or not, are going to deteriorate. That's why old people have trouble with their balance and whatnot. Now you speed up that process when you take head trauma, And I like what Hal's bringing up as far as conversations are the best form of information right now, because not only is science not caught up with concussions, we don't know the full extent, but some of the symptoms, especially the worst ones, they don't show up till maybe a couple months after the incident, which is what happened to me. I felt like I was fine. I had the initial concussion symptoms of throwing up the next morning and being out of it, but they cleared up, and then 3 months, which I found out is not abnormal, they come back kind of full strength. And even though I cleared the said vestibular therapies, like I said, it's been 2 years now, there's still noticeable changes that I've only been able to get those changes because of what Hal's been saying. I've had I've been leaning on my support system, and noticing that, I have much more trouble with my anger, whether it's on the road or basic things that everybody kind of deals with. But I noticed my tolerance, my reservoirs, so to speak, went dramatically down in how I can handle situations. Little ticks, like bright lights, is something that sets it off. When someone has high beams, I want to get out of my car and drag them out of their car and start doing some ground and pound from the mount position. That's not normal, but I'm exaggerating there. But the point is, that I really, really glad you brought that up, Hal. And that is true. That is probably the best form of therapy is communication. It was comforting to see Dunham so honest.
Yeah. All right, guys. Talk to you later.
All right,
thanks,
Hal.
All right, Hal.
Easy, buddy.
Let's go to Jim in Long Beach. What's up, Jim? How you doing?
Pretty good. That's exactly what I was talking about, is how they just canceled out Mark Hunt on his fight. Now, that was like Dana White, because he's pissed off at him because they're suing the UFC. This is getting to, the point. It's like, I want to watch all these fights, and they're always getting, every one of them, there's just one after another, somebody's being canceled out. I'm getting kind of burnt out on it, It's kind of like, I'm like, who's not going to fight this next fight? And all these fights are just it's getting kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, I think
we'll try and unpack that one a little bit more tomorrow.
It hurts more if you bought tickets for something like that, I would imagine. But I think that's why they're stacking these cards a little bit more than they used to, is because they've realized that a lot of these fights just don't come to fruition, and when they don't, it really, really kills somebody. There's so many other options, especially in Vegas. If you're going to use your money to spend on the UFC and you can't count on a card, the next time they come around, you may decide to go to a concert or something. So I think that's why these cards are starting to get stacked the way they are.
Yeah, because it's happening like with every fighter. This fighter's pulling out, that fighter's pulling out. This guy's not making the weight. They don't want that one to fight, And then like Conor McGregor, he's not gonna fight Tony Ferguson. That's for sure. Yeah, I already know that. He's not gonna fight him. He's gonna fight Nate Diaz, maybe at 170 pounds for the trilogy.
Well, the one thing Conor did say was, he hasn't committed to anybody, but he did say if he was going to fight, that one would be at 155 pounds, the next one. And that was even before the Floyd Mayweather fight or anything like that. I think he knows it's obviously great to get to that, the title defense stage of whatever legendary status he's trying to build. So 170, even if Conor pushed for that, I think that's where the UFC would give a little bit of a pushback. If they're going to grant him not having to unify, I think they're going to at least say, well, you got to defend. But as anything that involves Conor McGregor, you just have to hold your breath and wait for the announcement, because the speculation can go in so many directions. Like, I would have never thought. Well, yeah, we're going to go on forever with this one, but Ferguson wants Conor, Dana wants Conor. It was something in the direction that most hardcore fans want. That's what we heard after the fights the other day. So let's just sit back and wait and see what happens.
It feels like that's what's going to happen, though. This time around, I really do feel like it'll be Tony Ferguson.
I hope.
He'll fight Khabib before he fights him.
Want to bet?
Money.
You think so? Nah, he won't fight Khabib. You think he'll fight Khabib before he fights Tony Ferguson?
Well, yeah, because it'd be more money. He would make a lot more money if he even fights again. He's going to probably want $50 million to fight again. He's not going to settle for like $10 million or anything like that. He's going to ask for.
Yeah, I think that was boxing money. I don't think that's MMA money. The financials have to work, my man. You know what I mean? He definitely deserves more, and he gets more than the $2 million, the $3 million that you've seen on the ledger when Nevada does release the figures. He has those bonuses that come in through pay-per-views, and he's a pay-per-view king, so he obviously banks it. What we don't know is, does he get a quarter per pay-per-view, $2 per pay-per-view, $5? Who knows what he's negotiated? But he's a sharp kid, so you got to give him that. But $50 million, that just it doesn't just work with like what the what the promotion is gonna make, and it's has to make sense. Anyway, all right, Jim. Thanks for the call. We're gonna move on. You're hearing the music. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Rush 93. We're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk to Zach Makovsky.
They pat down TSA agents because they don't know where those people have been, and because they can. They are Gorgeous George and Goes, and this is MMA Junkie Radio.
SiriusXM presents an exclusive subscriber-only event, The Eagles, live at the Grand Ole Opry. You can win a trip to Nashville and front row tickets. For more information and to enter, go to SiriusXM.com/Eagles before October 19th. No additional purchase is necessary. Evan Dunham, who was our guest in studio earlier, can be followed on Twitter at Evan Dunham 155. Our next guest, Zach Makovsky. Follow him on Twitter at Zach Funsize. Let them know you heard him on the at MMA Junkie Radio show. Zach will be headlining ACB 72, taking place in Montreal, and that fight card takes place on Saturday. His opponent that night will be Yanni Sherbatov, 6-0-1 to Zach Makovsky's 20-8. Like I noted earlier, Zach, a former Bellator bantamweight champion, RFA flyweight champion, and a UFC veteran. What's up, Zach? How you doing? Zach Makovsky, you there?
Yeah. Sorry, it went out a little bit.
Oh, no worries. All right. I wasn't sure if you're going to start talking to us in French. You being in Montreal and training up there now. Have you picked any up?
Not too much, I gotta be honest. But I miss you guys. I miss talking to you guys.
We miss talking to you too. Does most of the city speak in French, or are there a lot of English speakers in that province?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everyone speaks English in Montreal.
Oh yeah, okay.
Everyone speaks French first. So, but like as soon as you start, they'll greet me in French and I'll respond in English, and they switch immediately for the most part. So, it's pretty easy.
I think I asked Alex Garcia this before, but has Faraz ever shouted instructions at you in French just to throw off the other camp? Easy words that you can pick up.
No, because I probably wouldn't understand them.
All right. So, hey, man, you've been with ACB for a few fights now, and they must think pretty highly of you. They got you in the main event there versus Yanni Sherbatov. How long did you sign up for to be with ACB?
I signed a 3-fight deal. This is my second fight with them.
Oh, okay.
So about halfway through.
Mm-hmm. And now they got you in the main event here against Yanni Sherbatov. Talk to us a little bit about Yanni Sherbatov, the scouting you've done on him, please.
Yeah, he's a talented guy. He's from Montreal too. He owns his own gym just outside the city, I think. And he's a talented guy. We're pretty much built the same. Both come from wrestling backgrounds. He was on the Ultimate Fighter, where the winner of the show got a shot at Demetrius. He didn't have a great performance there, but honestly, from most of the fights I've watched, I think he's very technical, very athletic, got some good power, and I think it's going to be a good fight.
Mm-hmm. Now, he must be tickled to death because he's got Zach Makovsky in front of him. I think you've reached the stage now where a younger guy may be trying to put himself over by using your name. Do you ever dissect fights like that, take it personal, or read into those types of storylines that the media and fans sometimes come up with?
I'm obviously aware of it, but it doesn't really affect how I think about it. To be honest, he's one of the bigger names I would say that ACB has as an option for me to fight in their division. Undefeated, former tough guy, champion in a couple organizations, Russian Canadian. So, and of course, when I got released from the UFC, or when they didn't renew my contract, I kind of knew every promotion that wanted to bring me in was going to, especially like the foreign promotions, ACB or Fight Night, Global, or whoever, or even Ryzen, would probably bring me in to, help elevate some of their guys. So, it's part of it. Obviously, doing everything I can to not let that happen. And, but, no worries.
Is ACB, respectfully I'm asking, I'm not trying to put them down or anything, but is it, the 3-fight contract, is that like a pit stop to maybe work your way back? Or would you like to be one of the people that likes or that helps ACB grow and stay with them?
I don't have any real long-term plans. I'm definitely towards the end of my career. I've been fighting professionally for almost 11 years, 34 years old. So I'm really just looking for the best possible deal and situation for myself. And I'm really open to whatever that is. If it's continuing to sign more fights with ACB, if it's going back to the UFC, it's whatever. I'm open to whatever I think is the best deal for me at the time. So,
all right, let me send it over to the Mandalay Bay. Goes and Dan Tom, what do you have for Zach Makovsky?
Zach, what would you say is the biggest lesson that you learned from that first ACB experience, whether it's in cage or even travel, any of that stuff?
I learned that that was an interesting fight because the opponent probably had a similar record. He was 7-1 with 6 knockouts, but I could only find 3 minutes of footage total on him. So it was really hard to kind of game plan and figure out what to expect. And he surprised me a lot with how hard he was to take down and his control on the ground. And what I really realized is I didn't adapt quick enough. I recognized some things that weren't working the way I planned, and I kept trying to go to him probably too often instead of trying to switch up tactics. And my corner was telling me, but I just thought I didn't get it right yet or whatever, So I got to learn how to, when I recognize something's not working, to be able to make the switch in the fight and adjust. And I feel like this has happened to me a couple times. My last fight in the UFC against Dustin Ortiz, I slipped off. I took him down. He would give his back to try to get back up. I would try to jump on his back, secure position. I thought the back control was something I trained, and I thought it was where I had the best chance to finish the fight against him. So I kept attacking the back aggressively, and I slipped off 3 separate times in the fight. Really feel like I gave away position and probably the fight because of that. And going into the 3rd round, I'm like, man, I keep slipping off his back. I'm winning the striking. I'm taking him down whenever I want. When I take him down, if he scrambles and gets up, I'll just let him back up. I'll outbox him. I'll take him down again when it's there. And I took him down in the 3rd round. He turns his back, and I'm like, I can get it. And I went for it again, and I slipped off again. And so, like, I mentally made the adjustment, but didn't do it in the fight. And that's something I have to make a better decision in the moment, you know. But it's not as easy as just doing it, you know. So we'll see.
Hey, Zach, as your career has gone on now, have you found yourself watching more video on opponents or watching less video?
I watch a good amount. I don't overdo it. I'll watch their fights. I'll break down some things I see. General kind of general approaches they use. What they're good at. What I could take advantage of, and then I just train around that. So, like, usually in the beginning of camp, I watch it a good amount, and then I don't really watch it. So once I figure out what I think I want to do, I kind of don't watch it for the rest of the camp. I watch other fights that I think have like a similar kind of play between the two fighters that I'm trying to implement, and see how other guys do work things successfully against X, Y, or Z, you know.
Now, you said that Frias has never really spoken to you in French during a fight, but I did find a clip of him bringing up the French. Do you want to hear it?
Sure.
You're what the French call les incompetents.
I don't know why he told you that, but it's kind of weird.
That sounds just like him. Just like him.
Hey, Zach, speaking
of... Home Alone, right?
You got it. Oh, that's good. He gets points for that one. That was a good pull. That was nice. Hey, Zach, speaking of coaches and whatnot, when looking at your tape, you know, you talk about coming from a wrestling base, but one of the things that impresses me most about you is your boxing. You know, from the southpaw, you're throwing those straight 1-2s down the pipe, and you're varying the timing. I like to even compare it to like Nate Diaz, like that 1-2 piece he hit Connor with. I like how Zach varies his timing on that. Are you working with anybody particularly with your boxing? Have you changed that up over the years?
Well, when I was in Philadelphia, I was working with a striking coach from the beginning of my training, Ricky Lee. He's out of Philly. He doesn't really train fighters anymore, but for a while he was my coach. And then when I went to New York, I started working with Crew Phil Nurse. I still work with him from time to time whenever I make it. He's coming up to corner me for the fight. And then recently, I've been working with the original owner of TriStar, Conrad Pla, who is like an American-style kickboxer, and you know, has a very different style than I do, like more of a pressure fighter and a power puncher. But it's been really good working with him and learning, you know, how like a different approach. He generally approaches fights differently than I do, and I feel like learning a different way to fight has really helped me get better at what I already do and be able to kind of fill in the gaps where I need to, you know. So Conrad has been great. I've been working with him a lot. I did pads with him this morning, and Phil Nurse and Faraz, of course. Those are the guys I'm working with at the moment.
Awesome. Well, it's crazy that you say you're toward toward the end of your career, because if you look at it from moving with TriStar, working with all these different coaches, you've been very busy, and amongst that busyness, it's even been as far as like cornering. I've seen you in like Joanne Calderwood's corner a couple times. As far as, you know, looking at your career in the future, is maybe cornering fighters, coaching fighters, is that something along the lines for Zach Makovsky?
Yeah, I really like teaching and coaching, and would really like to figure out a way to get into that when I'm done competing. I'm still, you know, fully committed to fighting and competing, so I don't want to kind of divide my attention. I've had some opportunities to, you know, open a gym with someone else or start teaching consistently, but I really want to give everything I have to competing while I have the opportunity to do it. But when I decide it's time, I definitely would like to get into coaching, and I don't know if it'll be my own gym or coaching under someone else at their gym or whatever, but it's definitely something that I'm very interested in and would love to do.
Where would you open the gym? Would you go back to the mean streets of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania?
I might. There's not really many MMA gyms around the area. You know, two of my friends own a 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu school there, but it's more of a Jiu-Jitsu school than an MMA school, and they're great. They have a great school and a great program. I train a lot there when I go home. But I don't know. I'd have to kind of scout out areas, figure out where I think I could make some money. So I don't know. I'll worry about that later.
Would Crew Hector Castro be in charge of Muay Thai or coaching any of the classes?
Oh yeah, he's running everything. He's teaching every class. Actually, I think he wants to open a gym. He used to, at least. I'm not sure if he still is interested in somewhere in Jersey. So I don't know. We'll figure that out when I decide to hang it up. But you know, I'm feeling good. I really feel like this is the best I've felt in a good while, and I'm definitely still improving. So you know, I feel like I got a few more years left at least. So we'll see.
Mm-hmm. And is that what it just basically boils down to? Is can you do what you used to be able to do, and when you can't, that's when you retire? Or what is the number one factor that will go into when you think you'll be done? And again, we're not showing you the door. You've definitely been clear about that during this interview, that you're nowhere near that. But since it's come up a couple of times, do you know what the number one factor for you will be?
I think it could be a variety of things. If I do feel some kind of like physical decline, I mean, I feel like I'm performing as well as ever. My body definitely hurts more consistently, but I don't feel like physically I'm declining in my performance. If there was ever a situation where I wasn't making enough money to just fight full time, I don't think I would want to work and train for a fight. So if like my purses started dropping below the point where I could afford to just train and fight, I would probably switch to something else. And just, I don't know, any kind of potential health issues, if anything like that came up, I would give it the proper consideration. But I'd say it's probably the financial situation is the thing that would lead me to leave first. But who knows?
Zach, last question. If a wealthy, extraordinarily wealthy individual came up to you and said, "Hey man, I like you. I heard you on MMAjunkie Radio, and I'd like to throw money around. Here's a check for $100,000, but your new nickname is the Anteater, and you got to change that on all your social media, and that's what you go by, and you always make sure that in every interview you let everybody know that you're going by the Anteater, no more Zach Funsize." Would you do it?
The Anteater for $100,000. Is this a permanent nickname for the rest of my life?
For the rest, yeah.
Yeah, probably.
That'd be dope. I'd be down with that.
Yeah, I like that one. No one else is the Anteater, right? Everyone's always like a lion or a pit bull or something like that.
You could rewrite that Hall & Oates song. You could be like, "Oh, here he comes. He's the Anteater." Oh my goodness, that'd be dope.
All the Europeans that come to TriStar, the guys are like Breeze and Arnold Allen and JoJo Calderwood and Duffy. They all call me Wee Lad, and they want me to change my nickname to Wee Lad. But
that's not bad.
I prefer Funsize.
All right. Always great to catch up with you, Zach. Good luck, man. This thing happens in about 48 hours, a little bit more than that. So I imagine you may be in the middle of a weight cut. Who knows what? You've been pretty cheerful, though. But great to catch up with you, as always, bud.
Likewise. Always a pleasure.
All right, take care. Folks, follow him on Twitter, @ZachFunsize. Thank you to Hector Castro for lining that one up. Let's take this commercial here. That way we can go commercial-free for the rest of the show. If you want to call in, we'd love to hear from you. 866-522-2846. Big announcement that happened today. If you didn't catch it, I'll throw that back out there. Maybe some of you might want to talk about it. The UFC's going to Winnipeg, and they announced Robbie Lawler and Rafael Dos Anjos as their main event. What an amazing fight. I can't wait to see that. All right, folks, we'll be right back.
I was so high.
King Kong has a lot of shit on them. Like a lot, especially Goes. Here are Gorgeous George and Goes.
SiriusXM is now on Amazon Alexa. Just enable the SiriusXM skill. Log into your account and say, Alexa, listen to the MMA Junkie Radio Show on SiriusXM. For more information, visit SiriusXM.com/Amazon Alexa. Let's go to the phone calls, and if you want to join them, as soon as they're done, it's going to be Oreo from Alberta, Canada, and Joe from H-Town. 866-522-2846. I told Danny before the commercial, I go, put on the guy who you like most. Let's see who he decided. Who's this? Hello, Junkie. Hey, Joe, what's up, man?
What's up, man? I got three things to say. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Danny, you
Yeah.
don't have to apologize.
Hey,
Let me ask. Sometimes I hit the wrong button, too. Go ahead, Joe.
Take it easy. Calm down. Hey, shout out to my Astros, man, making it to the League Championship Series. Good luck against the Yankees. I can't wait. Hopefully I can get to Game 1 tomorrow night. One thing, I want to do a stun gun. Is that okay?
Do it.
Orale.
All right, man. I want to stun gun Johnny Mac from Vegas.
Is that
Hear
John
me out
McDonald? John McDonald?
Yeah, I don't want to give over his last name, but you went ahead and did. So go ahead, man. But AKA John.
Yeah,
Charleston,
Joe, because your middle name's
Johnny
Discreet, right?
Hey, take it easy. Calm down, man. Well, let me get to this real quick. In the chats last week, and he knows he's getting it. So in the chats last week, he was talking crap about Daniel Cormier, talking about he's a crybaby this, crybaby that. And I was like, calm down, man. You didn't even hear the podcast. You don't even know what he said. And who's taking a picture with him the next day? The very next day? Johnny Mac. Son gun that fool. Jesus, those kind of fans, man, you give us a bad name, Johnny Mac. Come on, man. You can't be dogging a fighter one day and then taking a picture with him the next day. Come on, man. But let me get to my main thing about, we were talking about in the chats today, George, about the pay-per-views and how low it's been. And it's kind of weird to think about when you really look at the numbers, and I was looking at it a little bit here, and the pay-per-views used to be a steady $300,000 to $500,000. 300,000 to 500,000 pay-per-view buys every pay-per-view, no matter what. They put the UFC name on it, that's what they would get. And not anymore, man. Numbers came out for 215 and 216, $100,000 and 125. That is just insane. And it's kind of hard, when you really think about it. I just see Conor and Ronda. Hear me out real quick. Conor and Ronda, when they came around, they were doing 1 million buys every time, no matter what. And all the other pay-per-views were kind of, nobody cared about it. It's just the way the UFC does it now, how they put all their money, all their chips into these two people, and they don't really care about the other pay-per-views. And I want to hear your thoughts on, that kind of strategy as far as not caring about the other pay-per-views and the number that's dipping.
Well, yeah, for one, where did you get that, by the way? I just started, we started bagging on each other, and I just went in there and had some fun. But what was your source for those numbers?
Dave Meltzer.
Dave Meltzer. All right, well, that's as credible as it gets. A couple things here. This is going to be a great topic. John Morgan, I think, brought it up on our show. He had talked to some executives, and there was a number that he hung out there, like 150, 175, which is what the UFC always shot for. You get to that number, we're making money, regardless. We're making some good money. That covers all the expenses, the salaries, the site fees, this, that, whatever, and money's made. Granted, are they as happy as when they sell 500, 800, or $1 million? No. But still, as long as the show was making money, it was doing some good. We're now in the eyeballs of another area of the world or whatever. However, that conversation I remember was about 5 years ago, and salaries have gone up since then. So this isn't one where they're just going to go, oh, well, what are you going to do? It should be a concern to them, that's for sure, because it was back-to-back pay-per-views. As far as what you're asking, Joe, look, the UFC is almost recession-proof in a way, to me, in my eyes, where I think they'll look at 2017 and see how the year went rather than one by one. Sure, they'll analyze each card and then say, well, how can we get back into the average of 250 or 300 or whatever it used to be? We got to line up certain fighters. We got to continue building certain fighters. But at the same time, if at the end of 2017, whatever they made off Mayweather-McGregor, maybe 213, I think that was the card in Anaheim, or was that 214? I forget. Maybe if Conor comes in and closes strong and other parts of the business do well, who knows? Who knows if they show it as much concern? I don't know. That's probably a great question for having an executive back on the show. But for sure, that has to be alarming for them because they're the UFC, for crying out loud. Those are 3 letters that should command, in my opinion, at least 250,000 buys on every card. Why isn't that happening? That's the question.
Does Ronda still have that hold on MMA fans? Like, or if she were to say, "I'm coming back to fight," do you still have that feel that you have to watch her fight? You're willing to miss whatever games or what just to watch that girl fight, or has that gone away?
Well, we're hardcores, so I think we'll be excited about the matchup because they'll put her in a matchup where whoever she's fighting also has something at stake. But she strikes with the casuals goes. Now I don't know if she can reach where she once was because some of that had to do with the fact that she was bulletproof and she got it all done fast. Like we always talked about Mike Tyson. How quick can he get out of there? Is it going to take a round or two? Same thing with Ronda Rousey. So there would be a dip, but I can't see her just all of a sudden not selling at least 3/4 pay-per-views, regardless of who she's in there with, because she's Ronda Rousey. And again, another thing has to do with it is how much would she sell it? Is she going to be, distant from the media like she was in her last fight? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of 2 things right there.
Guys,
Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
No, go ahead, Dan.
I was just going to say, there's kind of a lack of stars, and it's hard to build those stars. I mean, even look at our budding stars like Max Holloway. Most of his fights, I believe there was an article where most of it was on Facebook live prelims, and he came up on that era where he was kind of under the viewers' eyes. Yet he kind of still made it there, and we're not sure where he's going to go. So that's kind of harder to predict. But I will say, not from the media opinion, because the media opinion is weird. It's we have our ears to the grindstone, but we're also media. We're gonna be watching. We're gonna be studying. We're gonna be doing our articles on this regardless. But even we're feeling fatigued. But I think the numbers, what those indicate, is that maybe the viewers are feeling fatigued from this oversaturation of cards. And if they keep oversaturating, I don't know how much easier it's gonna make to build the next star guys.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you think about it, this fight had heat between the 2 guys. So, that usually gets a lot of people excited. There was 2 world title fights. There was a possible record being broken, one of the title fights. Up until hours before the event, there was a heavyweight fight. So there was some likable names. I mean, Fabricio's a former champion. You know what I mean? Was it as deep as some of the other cards? No, and that might be where a lot of fans are pushing back. You got to give me more than that. You got to get deeper. Now, granted, Paige Van Zandt should have maybe possibly helped out a little bit. She dropped out with a few weeks to go, but it could just be that that's what the fans want. You spoil them a little bit and go deep with some cards, like the way UFC 218 shaping up, or even 217. They're going to expect that every single time. But it surprised me when Joe posted that, and I believe it was 125 and 150 with UFC 215 and 216. I was shocked, man. I thought for sure we were gonna maybe hit a 250 on Tony Ferguson versus Kevin Lee, but we never got there. I'm telling you, man, UFC's got to be concerned about that number.
Yep.
Yeah, real quick on my way out, man. Ronda Rousey's next bout will be in the WWE. Stephanie McMahon, her Triple H, they want her really bad. They're going to unload the Brinks truck just like, UFC did for Conor and stuff. Her next match will be in WWE, guys. We'll see you guys later.
See you, Joe. Let's go to Oreo in Alberta, Canada. What's up, Oreo?
Hey, guys.
Hi.
Hey, don't forget about the 216 number. That did follow that horrible tragedy, which, man, I'm so glad you guys are okay. But that did follow that horrible thing. So I don't think we should completely pull the alarm on that number. That could definitely have affected the pay-per-views and the ticket sales in a negative way as well. So just a quick note on that, right?
Yes, I don't know how. I mean, I'm sure maybe there was a little bit of an effect, but UFC 215, that didn't follow a tragedy. And again, we're talking about both cards. That one had a world title fight. It did have a title fight that fell out. I think Borg pulled out with 48 hours to go. But they were, promoting that. Dos Anjos is a former champion. Cejudo's a former Olympian. Melendez is a former champion elsewhere. Jeremy Stevens been around for a while. So they had some names on that card, but 125, 150, I'm telling you that cannot be good because these are losing efforts on in both of them. The gate, I'm sure that one they'll take a loss on. So I think what your comment, I'll point that maybe towards the gate, and Dana White was fine with that. But as far as pay-per-views at home, it could be that the reverse effect. Maybe this could be you wanting to stay home and support. Maybe you just elected to stay home a few weekends because of what's been going on, and so you decide to pull the trigger off. Well, that's probably poor usage of words, but you decide to make the decision to order the pay-per-view.
That's a good point. I'm actually more worried about the TV deal. So I heard that UFC and Fox didn't come to agreement, right?
Right.
So their contract is up to 2018. I don't know who else would be really interested. I mean, I think ESPN has, their bulk of their money is through the XFL, right? So I'm really worried that UFC might not land a good TV deal. And as you know, the way UFC got into prominence was their TV deal with Spike, right? And then it got to the mainstream with their TV deal with Fox. Now, if they, downgrade their TV deal, it's hard to get the product out to the masses to build those stars. I feel like UFC should be using their free TV shows, all the fight nights and stuff like that to build those stars. I mean, I remember Lorenzo Fertitta had a thing where it was the premium product, so their champions is the pay-per-view, and then their number one contenders is the Fox, and then their, below top 5 and stuff like that is their FS1. And lately UFC hasn't been following that, so I really think they should get back to that. But if they don't have an awesome TV deal, it's going to be hard to follow that process. What do you guys think?
I just want a monthly pay-per-view. I want maybe an additional 2 to 4 big Fox cards. I always think that's pretty good exposure. The cards are pretty solid.
I like 4.
The fight nights, they're usually not having to do anything with Vegas. Tough finales will usually be based around Vegas. But the fight nights, what do I give a shit where they go, right? I guess it's good for the UFC, but as far as what's good for me, I'd rather go to stacked cards. So now, as I say that, there are times where we'll ask each other, any fights this weekend? No, and all of a sudden you wish there was some. But I think I can get over that, and I'd love for more of the build-up on big weeks. So that's where I stand. How about you guys?
I don't mind having that lull when there's not a card. I just kind of prefer it to be around the time, like now, right? Where there's football, there's basketball, there's hockey, there's all these things going on. It's that time when there's nothing going on and you have no MMA. Those are the killers.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm the best person to ask for an opinion because of what I put in every card, so of course I'm going to say, hey, I wouldn't mind a little less, guys, but let's be honest, the FS1 cards seem like they're just promoting pay-per-views, getting our TV partners happy, and selling ad space for the most part. Not to be harsh, but those have been kind of the weaker of the cards. They're right there with the Fight Pass cards, which I'm a defender of Fight Pass, but I know they get criticized for their strong card value. I will say this, it's an important time for sure, the TV deal, but I actually wouldn't mind less and wouldn't be surprised to see them do a little bit less because of the return that they're getting. The question is it going to be worth it? And personally, I feel like there's a little bit too many chefs in the kitchen right now. And speaking of Lorenzo Fertitta, would not mind them reeling it back as far as more in-house control of the product. Because if they go to a new place especially, I think they're going to have less control. So it's going to be even more of a spread-out product, in other words. Just my opinion.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Jeff. Have a good day.
All right, Oreo. Take care.
Thanks.
Folks, we are out of here. First of all, thank you to Evan Dunham, UFC lightweight, for co-hosting the first hour of the show. We really had some great chat with him. Check out especially the first part when we were talking about his fight versus Beneil Dariush and everything that came with it afterwards. His visit to the hospital and his follow-up with the UFC PI. It was great talk as far as a fighter taking us through the steps post-fight and their concerns for concussions and I really, really enjoyed that. Goes lined that up. Hats off to him. Zach Makovsky came through, headlining this Saturday, ACB 72 out in Montreal. Always fun to catch up with him. Hector Castro lined that one up. Tomorrow, we are going to talk to Campbell McLaren, the president of Combate Americas. They got a big one-night tournament out in Cancun coming up in November. We'll talk about that. Still working on a few other guests. So, until then, we are out of here. Thanks to Danny Otto. Great job producing. Dan, Tom, excellent fight analysis. Goes, amazing co-host. And I, of course, took it to another level. I was fantastic. We're out of here, folks. Go out there and be champions.